Media has been very busy failing this week, from wrong predictions to blowing the coverage of Ukrainegate.
Joining us via Skype is Katie Halper, host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of Useful Idiots, a Rolling Stone podcast that I enjoy very much. Katie, great to see you, lady.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for joining us, Katie.
So we wanted to start with Chris Cillizza having an incredibly Chris Cillizza moment on Twitter. If we could throw the tweet up, we can take a look at this. So he says, aside from Biden and Warren, who do you see as the third person with a real chance to be the nominee? I say Buttigieg as of right now.
Wow.
Katie, your thoughts?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I want to almost thank Chris for this, because whenever the media wears their bias on their sleeves so overtly, it's great for people who engage in media criticism.
Right. That's right.
Like, you really can't make it up, you know? Like, usually, I mean, the great thing about media now is that we see this, for instance, with MSNBC. They had an image of all the candidates. They had an image of 10 candidates, and lo and behold, guess who they left out? Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
Really?
I was going to say Andrew Yang. That would have been
No,
just
I
as
mean,
likely.
Yeah. But, you know, and I think that that's a ridiculous bias too, but it's a little bit more, not justifiable, but they can kind of pretend like he's newer on the scene and he's not polling as well as Bernie. And I'm not like, that's the last thing I'm going to do is justify, you know, blacking out one candidate and not the other. Obviously, they need to be paying attention to both of them. But Buttigieg is polling very low. I don't know if Chris Cillizza thinks he's convincing people. I don't know if he was maybe making a joke.
It feels like
I think he was being. I really think he was being legitimately serious. He always write. I mean, look, this is a man famous for writing listicles. Okay, like 26 reasons why, whatever. Like he literally is a blurb artist who manufactured his way onto CNN. But
he did intern for. Oh, he was a George Wills intern.
Oh, was he really? I didn't even know that. That's hilarious.
I like him more.
I mean, he is like the personification of how you can be wrong about everything and continue to rise as long as you're wrong in a pro-establishment direction.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. That's totally true. And if you, it's funny because if you're at all nuanced and you get one thing slightly wrong, you're gone. You're out of there. Mm-hmm. No one takes you seriously. But as long as, like you said, you mess up in the narrative, perpetuating the accepted narrative, and you actually pretend that someone at 5%, polling at 5%, is the third most viable, then it's okay.
And somehow standing for like Pete Buttigieg isn't bias, isn't seen as bias or called out as bias.
It's because all their friends believe it, and that's what they actually think. So it's not biased to them. They're like, what do you mean it's biased? This is what we all think.
This is our world.
It's like my last dinner party poll, cocktail party.
Right.
You know, I polled there, and the numbers were really high, and people kept talking about how smart Buttigieg is and how he's a Rhodes Scholar. I mean, I do hear people saying that they like him sometimes. To be fair, the people I've encountered who say that they like him, they're like, well, he has no shot, but I like him. And I never know what they like him for. Like I said on Useful Idiots, Matt and I were saying, Matt was saying that he reminds him of someone physically, and I was like, a woodchuck. And I find that endearing about him. I think he's cute, and he looks kind of like a woodchuck. But I don't think that that's what most people like about him. I'm not sure what it is. Matt says that he looks a lot like some basketball someone. You know
what I think it is, Katie, honestly, is people like Cillizza have created this sort of general glow around him, general non-specific glow around him in the media that is, you know, that people are kind of picking up on. Like, oh, he seems good, he seems nice, he seems fine, because there's never critical coverage of him, and it's created this, you know, hazy, fond glow around him that's very non-specific.
Yeah. Well, we should also get to, Katie, with you, the blowing of the Ukrainegate scandal. I know that, you know, this is something you've been focused on as well. Is that I said this earlier. I mean, CNN and MSNBC are trying to convince us Hunter is a Ukrainian energy savant who also is like a private equity genius who was granted $1 billion loan from China. I mean, it's something that they've just refuse to touch. They refuse to touch it, and they have to convince everybody it's a baseless conspiracy theory.
Right, and it shows how kind of out of touch they are, because the fact that they're hitching their impeachment to a Trump scandal that really does show corruption in the Joe Biden family is just so on brand. It's like peak Dems, peak, corporate media. and again, this is probably because it polls well at their dinner party vote, in Washington, D.C. And it's so funny how I feel like I sound like Fox News sometimes.
Yeah.
Not because I am right wing, but because, there is so much bias among the quote unquote, liberal media, which of course isn't progressive media and isn't like at all populist media. And you guys talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
But there's another interesting danger is, not interesting, worrying danger is that if you ever say something like this, if you say that, you don't think the impeachment is strategic, you're branded as Trumpian.
Right.
Remember when, Crystal, you did a great monologue in response to this when Bernie was called a conspiracy theorist for talking about how, Bezos doesn't like him and maybe that's why he gets bad coverage. And it was actually mostly a joke, but it's not that direct. It's not like Bezos goes over stuff with a red pen. But I do think that it was the discussion around that was so ridiculous. You even had, people on CNN saying, well, Marty Barron himself is calling Bernie's claim a conspiracy theory. And when you have Marty Barron, it's like, wait, that's exactly who would call it a conspiracy theory.
Right.
Like, that's not against interest or whatever the term is in the law when you
Right.
the mother of the accused, even the mother of the accused says he did it.
Yeah.
That's not like, and people just say this stuff. And it is like, if you are at all sympathetic to Sanders, or even if you're not, you just care about fair media coverage at all, this entire, the entire election from starting in 2016 is so gaslighting.
Yeah.
Well, and it is amazing that, to me, it's obvious that fixating on Ukraine as the impeachment inquiry is a disaster. I saw Matt Stoller tweeted earlier today, the Democratic slogan for 2020 should probably not be, technically, our soft corruption is not illegal. It just blows my mind that they think that this is the strongest positioning, that this is the hill that they want to die on.
Yeah.
And it looks absurd when, we have Ted Lieu on the show, who's someone, I like Ted. I've met him in person. He's a nice guy. But we asked him about Biden making $50K on the board, and he's like, well, there's nothing to see here, right? People sit on boards and make money. It's like, come on. It's not hard to get this answer right. But you do have to acknowledge this kind of standard issue corruption is a massive issue that people find completely disgusting and which is completely pervasive in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Right.
Maybe Lou was actually being honest. He was like, there's nothing to see here. We do this all the time.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
Well, I think that's it.
And I talked about this earlier, which is Neil Bush got a $400,000 contract from a Chinese company while his brother was the president of the United States. This exists in our system. It's just this soft corruption. And people are so stupid. They really think that corruption works as in like you getting a direct payment from somebody. Nobody's that dumb anymore.
Yeah,
you pay off your family member, you pay off your brother, you pay off so-and-so. You think that money doesn't slosh around people's families?
Of course.
Let's be honest.
Right.
And the other thing is that people don't get that Trump has a different standard, right? So they're like, well, this corruption is worse, or, Trump did something that was illegal and broke the law, and the Biden thing isn't that big of a deal. But the thing is, like, Trump never pretends to play by the rules.
Right.
So when he does something like this, his supporters don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when outside of the totally, partisan Beltway population, people do, I think, see Joe Biden is supposed to be honest. Scrappy Joe, middle class, Scranton. I also like that this story gives us the chance to revisit the fact that Hunter Biden tested positive for cocaine.
Yeah, right.
And then was, discharged from the Army. Was it the Navy, the Army?
I think it was the Army. Yeah.
The Army, yeah. So, which is another, I joked with Matt, I was saying with Matt Taibbi, maybe this is the equivalent of like a Dem being hard on his son. Instead of like covering it up, he just sent him to Ukraine.
To make
Gave him
a
cushy job,
Look, Hunter obviously struggled with addiction,
going
through some rough stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I didn't mean to shame him, and
of course.
Sure.
And I'm sure but I'm sure to your point, the Bidens aren't super excited about reliving that part of their lives either. I mean, I honestly, I wonder how Joe Biden is feeling about the fact that Democrats decided to pick this particular issue to fixate on for the next 6 months. But anyway, Katie, love the work that you're doing. And
Thank you, Katie.
Love having you join us. Thank you so much.
Bye.
I love the show.
We'll have more
loves the
Rising
show.
for you
That's what she
after
said.
this. Yeah, that's what she
We
said.
love her. We'll have more Rising next.